Good morning, good afternoon and good evening. Welcome to our joint webinar presented by Sannam S4 together with SP Jain Institute of Management and Research based in Mumbai. Our topic today is the luxury and premium consumer market in India and the implications that has for international brands looking to enter this high growth market. My name is Beverly McLaughlin and I'm the Marketing Director at Sannam S4. I'd like to start by introducing you to our panel. First is Dr. Radhika Narayanan. Radhika has a doctorate in luxury marketing. She teaches at the SP Jain Institute in marketing, communications, and also in negotiation skills. Welcome, Radhika.
Thank you.
I'd also like to introduce you to Adjunct Professor Umesh Dand. Umesh brings a wealth of experience in the category management area, and he also is running an e-commerce channel in Mumbai. So welcome, Umesh.
Thank you and hello everyone.
We are very privileged to have Mr. Mohan Mariwala with us. Mohan runs the auto hanger business in Mumbai, and he specializes in the luxury auto brands of Mercedes-Benz and Lamborghini. Now, Mohan will bring with him a wealth of insight and practical advice in terms of how to operate a luxury brand in India. So, Mohan, many thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, without further ado, viewers, if you would like to ask any questions during the webinar, please do feel free to use the screen in the bottom of your screens so that you would be able to just post in a question and we'll do our very best to answer that. Okay, so India and the luxury and premium brand market in India. The luxury market in India in 2012 was valued at $7.8 billion. By 2017, the estimate is that it will be $16 to $17 billion. In fact, recent research reports suggest it will be even higher than that. So, India is diverse. It is a very large country with 29 states, each with their own different characteristics, different customs, different heritage, and even, in fact, different taxation regimes. What this means is that India is diverse and it's difficult for global brands sometimes to navigate through the opportunities and challenges that exist in the marketplace. With regard to the growth sector in the market, well, India has always had high net wealth individuals and always had a body of high net wealth households. These are increasing in consumer disposable income and also in spending power. But it's not just the top of the pyramid. That factor is actually permeating throughout the pyramid. And so, Radhika, I'd like to ask the first question, if I may, to you. Sure. In the West, we have very distinct notions and very distinct definitions of what constitutes luxury branding. But to the Indian consumer, what does the notions of luxury and premium really mean?
Good morning, everybody. Let me first start with a little bit of history about luxury and what luxury means to the Indians. Actually, our country is a very, very rich country. And the history shows that the kings and queens always enjoyed and led a very luxurious life. Look at their palaces, the monuments, the jewelry, thrones, the crowns, the robes which they wore, or even the rich spices. So the term luxury is not new to India or to the Indian people. But pre-independence and until mid-80s, there was a dip in the luxury consumption, purely because we were going through a very, very difficult phase, and our objective at that time was only to get the basic necessities and essentials. But owing to liberalization, post mid-80s, the economy started doing very well. The income levels increased. There was more disposable income. Hence, there was an uptrend in luxury consumption. Having said this, people of India loved luxury and even today love to consume luxury products and services. But to be very frank, there's a very, very thin difference between luxury and premium. In fact, it doesn't exist. Everything is categorized under luxury products and luxury services. So, this concept of difference between luxury and premium really doesn't exist.
Bev, can I add to this?
Please do.
Being a practitioner in this field, what I'd like to say is luxury is pretty personal and amorphous. So that thin line that Radhika talks about very much exists. And I have a way of looking at what is luxury, what is not. I believe the thumb rule is if the brand owner, that is you, believe your product is luxury and your customer agrees that it is luxury and buys it, that is luxury. So that's the way I look at it.
Yes, and the meaning of luxury is very different for different people, different consumers, and it also differs with age. Talking about age, um, this is something which I would want to bring to your notice is that the consumers of luxury today are the Indian youth. There is a major shift in the attitude and behavior of the Indian youth towards luxury. The older generation felt that consuming luxury was sinful, it was a splurge, and there was a kind of a guilt factor. But today, the youth of India believe that it's their right and they deserve to splurge or to consume luxury products and services. I would also like to add that the meaning of luxury is very different in mature markets like Europe, US, or Japan. But in India, the meaning of luxury is very, very different and it changes with the culture and the attitude of people in the various states of India itself.
Can you expand on that? Can you give us some examples of how the different cultures impact purchasing behavior?
Great. In fact, India is such a vast country. We have 29 states. We speak more than 100 languages. So, in a country like this, the whole country can be divided into north of India, south of India, east of India, west of India, and central India. And it's very interesting to note that each of these states are like a country and they vary, their consumptions vary, the factors that influence them to buying luxury varies from state to state based on their culture and based on their economic development. Let me give you an example. If a person in the north of India, where cities like Delhi, Punjab, Rajasthan, for them, luxury means status symbol. So what they would do is they buy luxury to show off their affluence. Hence, the consumption pattern, if you see, would be more of conspicuous products like maybe cars, palatial houses, jewelry, which is visible to their social circle. In fact, Mohan will add to it later. The second thing is if you see the east of India, the older generation always believed in simple living and high thinking. But today, the youth from this region are again people who love to spend on luxury products. And again, they are pretty flashy because they want to show the world that they have arrived. If you take the central part of India, which is Nagpur, Raipur, now this belt again are slow starters, but they hold very, very, it's a very potential market for luxury products. And for them, they are value driven. They would only buy those items or products which would give them some kind of value. Let's take the southern and western parts of India. Now, this is a very matured market. These people or the youth from this part are widely traveled, and so they do not buy luxury just to show off or to please somebody, but it is to reward themselves. They research, they know a lot about luxury products, and hence you see that though India is one country, but the factors which influence the luxury consumption is totally different for different regions.
Thank you. So, Umesh, I want to ask my next question to you. If by 2017 the luxury market in India is going to be in the order of $17 billion, then what's driving this growth? Why India? Why is India moving whilst Japan and, for instance, China, their rate of growth is slowing down? Why India?
Well, why India? I'd give you the answer in two parts. One is this is not a new phenomenon. We just took a break for about 50 years while regaining the independence and then kind of stabilizing the economy. So there is the way I look at it is let's look at who are the luxury consumers. One is a segment are the people who have been wealthy over generations, whom I call the connoisseurs. They are the people who have seen wealth, have been living a wealthy lifestyle for generations, and luxury is a way of their lifestyle. They have been abroad, they have established relationships with brands, they are pretty informed and knowledgeable. So they have been consuming luxury and they continue to consume. What happened in India in the early 1990s was economic liberalization. The socialistic mindset was kept aside, and India embraced the globalization as a trend. And what happened by virtue of that is the family managed businesses in India really boomed, and they contribute to upwards of 70% of the Indian GDP. And this economic boom within the economy created a lot of family wealth. This gave rise to the next segment, whom I call the flauntists. Okay, they're the people who like to flaunt what they have gained. To as a status indicator. Luxury is a status indicator. The next wave of economic development in India came in post 2000s. That was once the IT and the information technology boom really came across. A lot of young engineers traveled out of India, saw the world outside, saw the lifestyle outside, saw the conspicuous consumption which didn't exist back in India. And they naturally visited back to India and brought back a lot of wealth, made a lot of wealth there. And I would say these are the young executives whom I call the experimentalists. So they are the ones who love to experiment and move across brands, and they are the ones who seek the thrill in the experience of shopping. I'll move to the fourth one, which is a very new trend, which is driving consumption. That is of the working woman. Working women as a segment of the population didn't really exist in a meaningful proportion till about 10 years old, till about 10 years ago, and now it is sizable. We have this segment nearly about 22% of women today work in the corporate sector, and this was a disposable income that didn't exist in the household. And the lady travels within India, travels abroad, and we know that they are the ones who use this excess disposable income to express themselves, to assert who they are and the status they have acquired, and that is kicking the next wave of consumption. And the last segment, which is corporate gifting, is not an Indian phenomena. It is very much existing in the other countries, and that's the fifth segment. So these, as you really look at India, every wave of economic boom has led to a deepening of the consumption, the luxury sector.
Okay, thank you. So what you're saying, therefore, is that it's really the younger generation, it's the first generation rich, the working professionals that are really driving this boom. I'd like to ask another question around that, however, because there has always been a large section of society, the established rich. And in the past, they would have bought real estate and they would have invested in gold, these being less risk investments in potentially an economy that is less stable. Now that Modi's economy is becoming more stable, in the past, that sector would have purchased overseas on their holidays and business trips and so forth. Is it the case, though, with increasing brand availability in India, that they are now purchasing in the home market rather than purchasing overseas? Is that a phenomena? Is that a trend that we're also seeing?
Yes, indeed, you will be, but it's a trend which is moving pretty slowly, limited by the availability of luxury retail environments. But yes, it is a trend which is picking up pretty fast.
Okay, so just looking then at the luxury brands, and equally involving here thinking about the Indian luxury brands, and there are many, such as the Taj Hotel Group, such as Forest Essentials in the personal healthcare, such as Fab India, such as Good Earth. What motivates the Indian consumer to purchase, for instance, an international brand versus one of the local luxury Indian brands?
Well, there is no doubt that the Indian luxury consumer has always been inspired by the Western luxury brands. For example, the Maharajas, the kings that Radhika mentioned. Where did they buy their custom-made, gold-plated, studded Rolls Royces? They went to the West. Okay, so that is an aspiration that continues to be in India. It's pretty much well printed on the Indian luxury consumers' psyche, so to say. What really drives these consumers? So if I mentioned about the connoisseurs. What drives consumption for these connoisseurs is knowledge. They want to know more. They want to discover about brands that are luxurious brands that are less known to the others. They want that exclusivity that I have it and it's difficult to get and the others can't easily acquire it. For the flauntists, what really drives them to consume is really an expression of who they are, the status that they have now acquired. Yeah. So what they really look at is, does this luxury brand which I am wearing or consuming, does it indicate that it is a luxury brand? So they look for a product which has brand logos and monograms very loudly placed on it. And for the youth, it is the thrill of shopping. It's a thrill of the buying experience itself. And for the working woman, it's the assertion, the expression of what she is doing. So it is very much different things to different segments of people in the manner in which I've just explained.
Okay, so let's think about the first generation rich. Let's think about the working skilled professional population then. And what product adaptations, what do international brands need to think about when they're bringing their brand into India in terms of adapting to local tastes and local consumers?
I guess where I'd like to uh, state that about the consumption ladder. There's always the consumption ladder in terms of positioning of luxury brands, whether from premium to uber luxury, and every single brand, whether it is an uber luxury or a premium luxury, they have to keep in mind that in India the luxury market is just about re-kick-starting, and they have to make several product adaptations more to have entry level price offers for customers, so that the products are accessible to customers. And that is one thing in terms of price adaptation. The other is in terms of product adaptation. I would strongly recommend that people look at weaving the local Indian story in their product offerings. For example, in India, there are several icons or symbols or associations, if I may, which can be woven into the product offering. For example, motifs like the lotus, like the peacock, like the tiger, like the elephant, like the sand, they have very deep connotations in the Indian culture, and these are things that they should be considering and weaving into their product story. So what I essentially talking about is product adaptation, but not dilution, because the Indian young luxury consumer is pretty well informed, pretty well traveled, and if she sees a difference between the offering in India versus international in a brand, she'll make hard decisions.
I would just like to add here to Umesh's point. Though we are open to adapting the Indian logos or time, but at the same time, we also need to understand that the Indian youth, they do not want all these products to be Indianized. When I say that, let me give you an example. When Starbucks first came to India, they tried to use or bring in the Indian designs on the walls and bring in some kind of a flavor, Indian flavor. But this was not appreciated by the Indian youth because the Indian youth wants their product to be absolutely in the pure form so that they can actually experience and associate themselves with their Western counterparts. So hence it's very important to understand and analyze as to where we can Indianize a product or how much can you Indianize a product. Rather, I would say more than Indianizing the product, you need to customize and Indianize the marketing strategies, which is more important than just Indianizing the products.
That's
Bev, I
very,
like
very
to,
salient.
Bev,
But
I like
Umesh,
to
please
tell you
continue.
two very distinct examples of brands who have done it pretty well in India. One is Jimmy Choo for their shoe line. They introduced the a very specific exclusive India line, a line which was meant only for the Indian market, for the Indian consumers, adapting the product, okay, for the Indian consumer.
Right.
The other was Chanel. Chanel launched a line which was called the Paris Bombay collection, which did extremely well and exclusively for the Indian market. So these are the kind of smart moves which I think every uh, brand should be considering in terms of their offering in the Indian market.
Thank you. So let's think about the sectors then, and where you're seeing the demand. In which sectors of the luxury market are you actually seeing the demand for international brands? Radhika, would you like to kick us off on that
Yeah,
one?
I think we have an expert here. The car market is booming, and also the electronic products, especially the phones. Then you have the jewelry, the bags, what you say, the luxury fashion products. Again, there are a lot of takers for luxury fashion products, but I think the major I mean, the demand is more for the auto sector, the automobiles, the cars. So I think, that's booming.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So turning to Mohan, um, in Q2 of 2015, Mercedes-Benz is in pole position in terms of sales in India. Audi is ranked 2 and trailing in third place is BMW. So Mohan, give us some insight into the luxury auto market in India, please.
Yes, the luxury auto market in India is a story, as Radhika also mentioned. It's one of the fastest growing sectors, and the luxury auto segment has been growing twice as fast as the auto industry in India. And just to give you an example, Mercedes-Benz were the first entrants in 1997, and right until 2007, which is when BMW entered, Mercedes consistently sold about close to about 3,000 cars a year, growing at an annual pace of about 10%. In 2007, BMW came in and they sold, Mercedes continued to sell their 3,000 cars, and BMW sold another 3,000 cars, which goes to show that the market was a lot more larger than we anticipated, and it needed to be reached out to much more extensively. Even today, the luxury car market continues to grow at a double-digit pace, while the passenger car industry might have gone through a rough patch because the base effect is smaller. Unlike many other Asian markets, the penetration of luxury cars as a total percentage of cars sold in India is just over a percent, whereas countries like China, etc., are close to about 4.5% of their total car volumes as super luxury. You can imagine the kind of upside which is still remaining to be capped in this segment. And of course, what has led to significant growth in market share recovery for Mercedes is taking the cue from what Umesh and Radhika also touched upon, is a very growing aspirational segment in India, which is looking at innovation, which is looking at younger designs and younger styling, and a lot more technology and telematics incorporation. So Indians do like to see their luxury cars being extremely interactive and equipped with the finest of telematics. And having reached that stage, Mercedes is back in their pole position.
Okay, so tell us more about the potential adaptations that Mercedes is offering to, for instance, this new sector, this first generation rich sector. Has Mercedes had to alter its product offering in any way in the Indian market?
Yes, most certainly. I think that is also something that they've learned over a period of years. India continues to be a very different market, in a way slightly similar to Asian markets such as China. And no matter what segment of the Mercedes-Benz car you would be in, 80% of our cars continue to be chauffeur driven. And so essentially, unlike European markets or North American markets, you really need to address how comfortable, how convenient, and how luxurious the rear space in our cars is. And that is something that European manufacturers have had to adapt to much better, including simple things like providing remote controls for audio systems. 5 years ago, none of the top three German manufacturers ever thought it necessary that cars would need remote controls for audio systems. But today, it's absolute essential. Most of our cars come today standard with navigation. You'll be surprised, they insist on having navigation as a standard equipment, and most of them now come equipped with internet radio. So you could actually be connected to your apps and to your internet radios while you're driving. So it's been in a very short while, this aspirational segment has forced the automotive industry, while it is still at a nascent stage, to really jump generations and catch up with the aspirations of the West as far as features are concerned.
Okay, so what about entry-level products though from Mercedes-Benz?
Yes, in fact, it's been only about a year and a half since Mercedes-Benz has entered the entry-level products, and it has been an interesting study because this is the first time that we are actually be able to attract a significant portion of our buyers as first-time super luxury buyers, which means they actually jump segments. I think Radhika mentioned earlier saying that the line between luxury and super luxury or premium and luxury is extremely hazy in India, and which I would tend to agree with. What Indians perceive as luxury or super luxury is very different from what is perceived internationally, and it has evolved over a period of time. And but slowly but surely, most of them are now really driven towards brands, of course. While within the brands they are reasonably agnostic and they will experiment, but they will definitely prefer any of the top international luxury brands vis-a-vis other competitive Japanese manufacturers. And I think the aspiration to grow into a European luxury car is so high that people will quickly jump segments and want to get into a super luxury vehicle very, very quickly. So in addition to a combination of newer entry-level models, I think what has really fueled the growth is most of the German luxury manufacturers also launching their captive finance operations in India, which has made the affordability of these cars extremely aggressive and definitely much more competitive than commercial banks. And I think that has significantly been one of the reasons why their growth has been stupendous, I would say, over the last 3 years.
Oh, that's interesting. So, as an operator of a luxury brand in India, what are the major issues that you face running your business?
One of the greatest challenges, Beverly, is quality of talent. India continues to have a very wide socio-economic demographic society, and the gap between, let's admit it, the gap between the haves and the have-nots is extremely wide. So today, the person who's actually on the shop floor selling super luxury cars or even servicing super luxury cars is at an extremely different socio-economic level compared to the customer that he's catering to. And that gap is one of the most challenging that we find to bridge in terms of understanding what the customer's aspiration and expectations will be. And I would think one of the greatest challenges that we as Mercedes-Benz have faced in making inroads in India is to continue to address the talent gap and continue to keep investing into people, getting them trained, getting them not necessarily only technically trained, but even from the luxury perspective trained. There is a dearth of very high quality luxury retail training institutions also in India. So we do end up investing significant amount of time and money on talent acquisition, training, and most important, retention.
Okay, and are you training mainly in India, or are you also sending, for instance, back to Germany, training overseas? Where is the majority of this customer servicing training coming from, and the technical servicing training too?
Okay. You're absolutely right. Most of the technical or the selling skill trainings happen in India itself, but increasingly there is involvement from Mercedes-Benz in Germany to get the lifestyle training and the luxury training done across the world. So we do end up sending sales executives to places which they would never imagine they would go to, which includes Portugal or Spain or Germany, and I think it is extremely essential for them to do that, to be able to understand the overall experiential luxury selling rather than being able to sell the products. I think the key here is we try to inculcate into them that they are not in the business of selling more means of transport. They are actually selling aspiration. They are actually selling luxury and not just means of transport.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's really interesting. So, Mohan, what tips would you give to an international luxury brand then that's thinking of moving into India?
Yeah.
What piece of advice
India
would you give to
continues to
them?
remain, I think Radhika dwelt upon it very, very well. It continues to remain a combination of different cultural, I would not say countries, but states which are fierce, extremely independent linguistically, culturally, and in terms of financially, even taxation tends to be very, very wide. The dearth of talent also is a extremely challenging part. Uh, Wealth is spread across the country of India, so it is not necessary that luxury is penetrated or is demanded only in the urban areas. It is also equally demanded in the semi-urban and tier 2 and 3 cities, which means anybody entering India needs to take cognizance of that and be able to prepare a business model which is effectively able to reach every corner where wealth is spread. B, lack of talent also means that our operations are not necessarily extremely efficient, which means that you will need to have a business model which is able to cater to very challenging market conditions. Operating costs tend to be higher because efficiencies are lower, and real estate is probably as expensive as any of the developed cities in the world, especially in the urban areas. So there are challenges. One will need to be patient. One will need to be investing significantly into the building blocks, not necessarily the hardware, but definitely the software of training and creating a team first before we really start seeing numbers. I think that is one of the tips that I would tell them and ask them to base their business models on these clear conditions and these clear challenges which would be ahead of them.
Thank you. So it's clear that India has a phenomenal amount of opportunity, and that the growth of India is exciting to international brands. And you've rightly outlined, Johan, some of the challenges. Umesh, what other challenges would you suggest that international brands need to be aware of when entering and operating in the Indian marketplace?
Sure. I look at these challenges in three buckets. One bucket being the regulatory issues. Okay. In India, there are huge import duties, anywhere ranging from 25 to 150%. Foreign direct investment, 100% foreign direct investment is very much allowed in a single brand retail. but with some riders, and the riders are 30% local sourcing. Now that is something that luxury brands will have to be very clear about if they are entering into India. How do they manage 30% sourcing clause? Find in raw materials could be going from India, but the conversion has been happening in other marketplaces. Can they do the conversion in India specifically for the Indian lines? Okay, that is an opportunity and also a challenge. So that's the first bucket. The regulatory bucket. The second bucket is the intellectual property issues. Counterfeit is a phenomenon which exists globally. Globally, if you look at it is nearly about 7% in terms of the counterfeit parallel market. In India, it is slightly small, but again significant. It is 5%. So 5% of nearly about $8 billion is actually a hole in the bucket. And luxury brands will have to look at what are the loopholes, legal loopholes, how do they protect their IP rights, and how do they educate the Indian customer on in terms of brand recognition of quality and also industry awareness. How do they stop it? Building relationships with the local authorities to enforce this IP protection. That is the second bucket of issues. The third bucket of issue is that of lack of infrastructure. Now, yes, there are luxury retail environments in India, whether they are star hotels or the new spanking new airports in India, or the luxury malls which are coming up, but they are far too little in terms of supply as compared to the demand. So what happens is when supply is less and demand for such space is higher, is rocketing rental prices. That is something that one will have to be mindful about, because for many brands it might just turn the entire store economic equation upside down. The fourth bucket, if I may add, is typically what Mohan mentioned, which is the talent deficit, which Mohan has elaborated quite a lot, and I don't need to elaborate. So, in summary, four buckets of issues that luxury brands will have to keep in mind: regulatory issues, intellectual property issues, lack of infrastructure issues, and talent deficit.
Thank you. And it's clear that for anybody, any company that is looking to enter the Indian market, you really do need some advice, some expert advice, particularly in terms of the regulatory framework, the compliance, the company structuring issues, and also in terms of IP as well. And it's very important to consider the IP issue very early on in the process. As we all know, the IP process can actually take between 12 to 18 months in India. So that's very important to get a grip with that very early on. Thank you very much, panel, for this wonderful conversation and for your insights. Before we leave, I would like to ask you all to share with our viewers just one piece of advice that you would offer to any international brand coming into India. We've heard from Mohan, so Radhika, what would yours be?
I would say one thing, that Indians today, the youth understands that luxury is expensive. The youth understands that it's okay to pay a high price, but at the same time, the intrinsic nature of Indians is they love freebies. So it would be good if an international luxury company which comes to India is able to kind of bundle the freebies along. Let me give you an example. Maybe a phone, an iPhone can be bundled with not so much, not so high-ended luxury like a Nike pair of shoes along with that phone. So this is something I think they would love. And second very important thing is that post purchase relationship is very important, because in India, long term relationship trust factor is very important. So if they are taken care of, things like send them birthday wishes, call them for launch parties, make them feel good, pamper them, and I'll tell you, they are your loyal customers forever.
Thank you. And Ramesh, what would you like to add there in terms of advice for international brands?
Yeah, I'd like to put in actually 2 points. One point is what I've already mentioned, and I need to repeat that. That is about product adaptation and not product dilution. Product adaptation to weave in the bouquet of cultures that India has. Yeah, so that's the first thing. Brands should seriously consider weaving that into their product offering. And the second is of personalization of the product and personalization of the service. These are three things. These are two things that I'd strongly recommend brands to consider.
Okay, well, thank you. I think I would only like to add that any company that is thinking of moving into India, it needs to be a long-term corporate commitment, not just for 1 or 2 years, but you have to be in it for the long term. And the corporate senior board engagement into India equally has to be there as well. So anyway, thank you very much, viewers, for listening to our presentation today. And also thank you, panelists, for joining us. If you would like to find out more about doing business in India, then please contact us through our website at sannams4.com. Indeed, if you would like to find out more about the executive education programs that SP Jain runs, including Doing Business in India seminars, then please contact us through sannams4.com and we will make sure that we connect you with SP Jain. Well, that's all from us today. Thank you very much and goodbye.